Hello and welcome back. So we're going to do another little coding session, and I have a list of to-dos that I want to cover today. I know that last time we left off with the turnOn function, but I'm gonna take like a couple small detours really quick. If you want, you can skip ahead about 5 or 10 minutes and get to that. But I'm going to look at this library really quick called Easy Toggle State. I looked at this in an earlier video, and the reason why is because I was thinking the other day about this library and about how it covers so many of the cases that I want to cover with my switch library. And so, if nothing else, maybe I can learn from it, right? So I just wanted to look at how it handles targeting elements, because if the options there are pretty advanced, maybe I'd want to incorporate them into my own library, or even consider using this library as something I'd build on top of. Okay, so if I look here, the data toggle target is a selector, and this is the basic targeting. So toggle the class on the trigger element and all the target elements defined by the selector in the whole page. So this handles the whole page, toggle the class on the trigger element and all the target elements defined by the selector belonging to its parent container. Okay, so that's a cool one. This one's target self, and it looks like it's within the element itself. And then this gets the target and the previous adjacent element, and this gets the next adjacent element. So a lot of these aren't super useful to me, but I am kind of interested in this target parent one. So if I go into the code and I download it real quick, and I open that up and dump it in here, I can look inside the code, look inside the source, and I think I'm going to look for constants because that's probably how he's handling the selectors or the attributes. And we can see, yep, we've got the target, all target next, target parent. So I just want to see, does this target parent attribute cover ancestors, or is it exact in its naming and it just targets the immediate parent? From the docs, it looks like it's probably just the immediate parent. But let's take this constant and we will search, I guess, the helpers first. Okay, yep, and it looks like it's in there. So if the element has attribute target parent, then the selector is going to be the target parent attribute inside the target parent attribute, which is what we would expect. And then we test the targets with the selector using the parent element. Okay. So yeah, it looks like it's just the parent element. I think this library would be a little bit more useful if it also gave you the ability to only target ancestors. But there's another option here. So you can, with our switches, yeah, so that's another thing. With our switches, we, so here, sorry, over here, where we specify all of the attributes, I actually, you might notice, changed this context from parent to ancestors. And that's because I realized that with the Easy Toggle State library, they were using parent and they meant parent. So if I use parent or parents, I should mean exactly that. And what I really mean is the ancestors. So I mean the parent and the parent of the parent, and et cetera, et cetera. So I changed this to ancestors, and I changed that also in the code. So just to catch you up, I didn't really do that much work, but I did record like 4 videos before this, 3 or 4 videos before this, and in each of them something went wrong. So I am a tiny bit ahead of you in terms of the code. So let's see. So there's one more thing we can try here. So with ancestors, that I mentioned like a few videos ago that ancestors is something that we can use because what we're trying to do is have a bunch of bundles on the page, and then you click a button inside of the bundle, and it's going to change the widget on the parent container, right? And so ancestors works for that. But another thing I mentioned is using an index instead of a string here. So instead of having that, we could have, for example, the number 0, right? And we're going to have both of these options, but this number can stand in for exactly what this does too. Because if we have, say, three bundles on the page, and we're inside the first one, we're going to know we're inside the first one, right? Because of our templating language, or we can attach a data attribute or an ID that tells us we're in the first one. So we're going to know we're in the first one. So what we can do is just say inside of the action, we're setting this attribute dynamically in this case, right? We would have to be. So we would set this to 0 because that 0 is the index of the first bundle. And so that would do exactly the same thing as this ancestor string. The reason I wanted to use this string instead of the index is if I use this string, I don't have to programmatically set this attribute value, right? So I don't have to set 0 for the first one, 1 for the second one, 2 for the next one. I don't even have to worry about that. I just use ancestors for every single one, and it's going to know that, okay, we're just worried about the one that we're inside of. Okay, so now that we know we have that other option of using the index, let's go into the docs for easy toggle state, and I just want to play around with it a little bit. Okay, so let's reveal this file and open it up, and I want to go, down to the checkbox, and I'm going to inspect this. And I zoomed in here on the dev tools so you can see them a little bit better. So a lot of upgrades today. We got the better audio recording and a zoomed in dev tools. Okay, so with this button, this has a data toggle class, right? So all it's going to do is toggle the class on this element. But if we want it to toggle the class on its parent, I believe what we want to do is add data toggle target, and then we want to do it's an ID. So we're gonna see right above it, simple right here. So we're gonna do simple checkbox demo. Okay, and then when I check this, it's going to get the isChecked class, right? And let's actually change that to our own custom class. So it's going to be active instead. And you'll notice that the button too is getting this active class, which is a little bit weird for me, but it doesn't really impact anything. It's not that big of a deal. So now let's call this a bundle to mimic what we're going to be doing with Artisfy, and we'll set the target to bundle, kind of expecting this to not, and we can delete this ID. We're expecting it not to have a bundle class anywhere else on the page. Or even if it does, it should also activate those, right? Okay, great. So now something else we can do is, so say we want to get the first bundle on the page or the second bundle on the page, right? So let's edit this HTML. I think there's probably a quick way to format this HTML, but I don't know how. So anyways, we're just going to copy and paste this. And now I have these separate bundles with these separate buttons inside of them. And if I click one, they should all activate. Oh no. Okay. Oh, I think it's slow. I think it's responding slowly, maybe? Maybe the event handlers are set on when it's loaded. So in that case, let's edit the HTML, grab the bundles, which start right here, and go to here. Oh, there's one above it. Jeez. Okay, we're going to grab all these, and we're going to find our simple checkbox section, and we're going to go down here to where the example is, and I believe it's this right here. Okay, so we're going to paste this in, and we'll just format it differently so we know it's our code. Okay, and let's refresh here, and let's see what happens. Okay, so yeah, it's working now. So you can see the checkbox isn't checking, right, because those styles don't use the active class, and we decided to use the active class, but we can see in the DOM, it is setting the active class on the bundles and on the checkbox that was responsible for setting it. Okay, so now let's wrap this, and I guess we can format it a little bit better, right? Indent these, and let's wrap this in class bundles. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want this button to just affect the first bundle, this button to just affect the second bundle, and this button to just affect the third bundle. So for that, we're going to use the nth-child selector. And so I looked this up earlier in one of the earlier videos, and because I honestly don't really use this selector that often. So we're going to do this, and it has an index of 1 instead of 0, like a lot of programming syntax. And we're going to do that, and we're going to do that, and we're going to change that to 2 and that to 3. So I think that should work. I'm always confused about whether this nth-child selector goes on the element you want to select, or if it goes on the parent. But I guess it makes more sense that it goes on the element. So it gets this element, this div, if it is the first child of this. Okay, so let's go here, we can refresh, and let's inspect this, open up these other bundles, and now let's try clicking. Boom! So that's cool, right? So that works, and it's all handled individually, and it's exactly what we want, right? So we could ostensibly use something like this instead of our Switch.js library that we're building right now, that we're hard at work building. Before I built the first version of widget.js, to be fair to me, this easy toggle state hadn't come out yet. If it had come out yet, I might have considered, I probably still wouldn't have used it. I probably still would have built my own library just because it's fun. But, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, sometimes I get in the mood to build a library. And it's fun. So the best thing about actually building a library is a lot of my time is spent working with other people's code, and I have to adapt my thinking to the way they think. And that can be fun. It can be like a puzzle that you're figuring out, and then you figure it out, everything fits into place, and boom, you feel like you have a new tool in your tool belt. But every once in a while, you feel like just using all of the ideas in your head to like build something exactly as you expect it to be. And that is really, really fun because now you have this tool that not only is super powerful, but works exactly in the way that your brain works. And I mean, it's hard to pull that off, actually. I mean, I hardly ever, like, even when I have an idea in my head, to convert it into something that's real is actually a pretty hard thing to do. Usually there'll be some edge cases that don't quite work how you expect, but that's the whole challenge of really anything, from writing a novel to writing code is, you get closer and closer to creating something that works how you think it should work. So anyways, this worked, but there's a problem with it. So this selector, the nth-child selector, really tightly couples the structure of the DOM elements to this functionality. So let's say, for example, let me show you what I mean. So if I wrap this all in a div, and then I refresh, and then I inspect into here, what happens if I click this? Okay, the first one gets activated. What happens if I click the second one? The second one gets... So this still works. That's weird to me. Okay, but as I mentioned before, I did play around with this earlier, and I found a case that made it break. So I guess in this case, the reason this doesn't make sense to me is I thought, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought that this class doesn't matter, that it ignores the class and it looks for whatever element is the first child, right? So like in this example, it doesn't care about in my head, right? I'm not saying this is accurate, but in my head, I was thinking it doesn't care about the class. All it cares is that it's the first child. And so you could attach this to any element. And all it's going to do is care if it's the first child. So what I thought is it would look inside of bundles, it would find this div, and it would set the class on that instead. But obviously, it's working okay. So let's try a different case. So what if I do this? So I wrap each of these bundles in a div. Yeah, okay. Okay, so that should work. And hopefully this breaks it. Oh, but I wrote the code wrong, I think. I think I didn't. What did I do? Oh no, okay, so now they're each, oh no. Let's see what I did. So this is closed, that's closed, that's closed. This is not, this closes down there. Huh. Oh, okay. Well, I missed that one. And then this. I'm not quite sure how that happened. Okay. So we got this, and let's expand these so that we can see all the bundles. If I click the first one, they all get active. If I click the second one, nothing happens. I actually get an error. There's no match with the selector. Okay, so now what is happening, right? I guess what's happening yeah, that's confusing to me. I guess what's happening do I not know what nth child means? Because why, okay, if I click this one, they're all getting the active. So I just want to, I'm almost positive he's not, the person who designed this isn't messing with this. Like they're just passing the query selector into document query selector all. Yeah. So wait, and this is the broken case, right? Now I'm super confused. Okay, so if I click into here, this is the bundle active. That's what I wanted. This is the oh wait. Oh oh. What? I'm sorry that I don't understand this. So it's getting. And this doesn't work, right? Yeah, because with this first with this nth-child 1, it's getting these three, and the second one is okay. So they're all the containers. None of them are the button. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. But why are these all the nth-child 1? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if someone wants to explain that to me. But anyways, the issue that we're running into right now is one of the issues of tightly coupling your DOM structure to a piece of functionality. So what I mean by that is, like, you could find a way to get this to work now, right? You would probably just have to do like div and then that, and then div and then that. And don't think I'm super smart by doing this because, like I mentioned, I did those earlier videos. So this took some trial and error. And yeah, that's going to be super embarrassing if this still doesn't work. Okay, so yep, that does, that does, that does. So this works as expected. So it's not hard to change this to get it to work again, but the main issue is that when you build fragile code that depends on the structure of the elements on your page, you're always going to have this voice in the back of your head that's like, I don't know if I can change this. If I change this, I think something's going to break. You know, maybe I shouldn't build this out. Maybe I shouldn't wrap this in a container. And you're going to end up building a slightly worse version of your product across the board because you're slightly afraid and you're worrying about these other things. And the main thing with this is that, say you're building a really cool component, this like really awesome new component that's going to provide a lot of the value to your users, you know, who want to use your product. You know, think of like on Twitter, you know, when you click the tweet button, that little box that pops up, that's a huge part of Twitter's value proposition. I know you probably, like, I can't tell how much work went into that, but I guarantee probably like months and months, even years of work of like usability research and all kinds of stuff went into that. Now, if you're working on a feature like that, that's like core to your product, and I'm saying, you know, it could be more complicated, right, than like a simple text box. Not just, okay, not to say that Twitter's text box is simple, because it's not. It handles a lot of different cases. And even, you know, Facebook's too, right? You can like put images in there and they'll format in a certain way, and, you know, it's a very advanced piece of technology. You know, so if you're building something like that and you are distracted by this other thought that what you're doing right now could cause problems down the road, or could cause problems with some of your other components or your other code, you're not going to build the best component. When you're in that mode of building something complicated and a core piece of technology for your product, you need to be completely focused. So yeah, so long story short, that's the reason you don't want to tightly couple this stuff, because you don't want those worries in the back of your head, and you don't want to release broken code. And also, not even to mention functionality, when you're designing your site, right? When you're designing your site, you don't want to be thinking about functionality, right? So, you know, I want to be able to add a container div here around each bundle if that's what I want to do, right? So I don't know. I mean, I'm probably in the course of doing these videos, I'm going to tightly couple some functionality to the structure of my DOM, and I don't know. You can yell at me, and I'll probably just ignore you. But yeah, in general, it's a bad idea. Okay, so we looked at easy toggle state. We looked at how to determine the target, the like advanced options. I think the conclusion I came to is that it's a pretty good library, pretty powerful library. Probably would serve most of my needs for which I'm building Switch.js. But I do like the Switch.js syntax better, and I like that it's more focused on what it does instead of more it being more verbose, even if that means it's a little less flexible. I like that. Okay, so let's see. Determine on/off inside of turnOn and turnOff. So the reason I want to do that, so when I call the turnOn function on a, yeah, okay, so let me take a quick pause before I continue. Okay, so now we're going to get into the code. And I want to talk through the latest functions that we were building, which are turnOn and turnOff. And yesterday we built a bunch of code around turnOn. Now I was thinking last night that I probably want to expose this function publicly, which means I want to export it, right? So I want to have something like this, so that when I include this switch library, I'm able to, on the page I'm on, say this is Artisfy, I want to be able to say like, switch, this is the library, and then I want to say like turnOn, and then I want to give it an element, and I want to give it a switch name. And if that element has the ability to be turned on, it will turn on. So turn, oh geez. Okay, so this is what I want, and in order to do that, I need to be able to tell inside of this turnOn function whether the element is already on or not. And right now I'm doing that in a different part of the application, or I was. So remember those earlier videos I was telling you about? I just quickly went in and I removed this one line of code, which was right here, right? It was right in there, and it said like switch data on equals, and then it was able to tell whether it was on or not using a matches on the element, a matches function. And I decided to split that out into the turnOn function so that we can publicly import it and use it. So now what I want to do is use that here. And that way I can put this section, this whole section right here, inside an if statement and say, if it's not on, or sorry, if it's already on, don't do this part, right? Okay, so in order to do that, I just created this function called isOn, and we give it a switch name and we give it an element. And that's going to be, I think, what we're going to use here, okay? So, and this is, the reason I'm doing switch name and element instead of passing switch in here is because I want to also be able to export this function and use this function publicly, and having just two simple arguments is a lot better for that. So what I want to do is return matches, and I want to use pretty much this. So I want to see if it matches this with a value of space-separated space-separated names, and it's going to have in one of those space-separated names. I want the switch name to appear. So let's actually make this a template string. and let's insert a variable in here called the name of the switch, and this should do it, right? So here we're seeing if the element has space-separated values, of which one of those values is a switch name. And we're using this tilde selector that is purpose-built for that. And we're using matches, which is something that we're going to polyfill for IE11, but is available in all other modern browsers. Okay, and you can see that the data switched on attribute is just a space-separated list of switch names. So we don't have to worry about any additional selectors for that. Okay, so now let's do this. So if it's on, if it's off, we're going to do this. So let's do if not is on, and we're going to pass in the switch name as well as the switch element. Okay, so that should work, and you might be wondering why would we do this work out here? Well, we shouldn't. Okay, so cool. So we're going to see if it's on already. So if it's off. So if it is on, this is going to return true. And then if it's off, this is going to return true because we're negating this. So so if it's off, then we want to go and do all the work to turn it on. But if it's on, we don't care, and we want to just skip over this. Okay? So I'm really tempted to just create exclamation points confuse me. They really do. Yeah. It's a stupid thing, I know. I don't know if there's a better way of doing this. But we're going to do that, and we're going to do that. So if it's off, we're going to turn it on. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to turn it off. Oh, sorry, and I rewrote this code slightly. I just kind of like updated the documentation, and I'm pretty sure that's all I did. I just made it clear what's happening. So we're going to get the turned on switch names by parsing the attributes, which gives us a bunch of objects with keys equal to name and the values equal to the name of the switches. We're going to map over those to make that a list of just the name of the turned on switches. And then we're going to add the new switch name to that list. If it has a custom name, we're going to add that in there too. And then we're going to replace the old attribute values with the new ones. And I can just say like including the old ones too. Because yeah, that's what we're doing here, is getting the old ones. Okay, so, and we're going to space separate them as is required. And the nice thing about checking is off or is on in here too is that we're not going to duplicate on. So like if for some reason, no, we weren't going to do that anyways. Okay, never mind. Okay, so turn off. The first thing we want to do is, I think it's the same thing. We want to get the turned on switch names. You know, it's probably pretty similar to this. So I'm just gonna copy this stuff. Get the turned on switch names. Remove the passed in switch name and the optional custom name, and replace the old attributes with the new ones. Replace the old attribute values with new ones. I mean, that works. Okay, so that handles that. Remove the switch name. That handles that. That handles this is in there. And then remove the attribute entirely if there are no active switches. Okay. So this is probably going to be an else if at the end, and one of them's going to be the if is going to be this, and then the else if is going to be that. Okay. So get the turned on switch name. So we can probably just do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to do a function get list of turned on switches, and we're going to pass in an element, and we're going to paste that in there. Okay, and we're gonna replace this with this switch on, and then we're gonna return switch names, and the element is gonna be there, and the switch name is going to map over that and return that. Get list of turned on switches. You pass in the element, you get those attributes, you map over, and you turn them. Okay, that makes sense. So now let's just copy this. Okay, switch names. Now we want to, this is difficult, I think. It's a little difficult. No, it's not. So now we're just going to say let filtered switch names equals switch names filter, and we're going to have like name, and we want to return true, or rather I should say we're going to return false if the name is equal to the name or the custom name of the current switch. Yeah, I laugh because this is pretty hard for me. Okay, switch name. Okay, so this is the case where we don't want to keep it, right? So if the name, why is this so hard for me? Okay, let's just spell out real quick. What is the case where we want to remove it? So if the name is the same as the switch name, or the name is the same as the custom name, then we're going to remove it. So let's just put an exclamation point before that, right? Jeez. Yeah, I mean, it's like, so I'm pretty sure that's right, but it's still like super confusing to me. Like, I know if I come back to this, I'm just going to be like, does this make sense? How does this make sense? So instead, I'm just going to actually write this out. Okay, so like has, or like is name would be like that, right? That is custom name. What did I do wrong? Why is the syntax weird? I mean, the syntax coloring. I don't know why it's weird. Maybe it doesn't understand. No, I think there's something I'm doing wrong. I don't know, maybe not. Okay, so we're gonna get the name. We're gonna say like name matches or our custom name matches, and we're gonna say, we're gonna like return if the name doesn't match and our custom name doesn't match. Yeah, I mean that looks pretty good to me. What do you think? I think there's probably like a simpler way of doing it, or like, you know, a more efficient way of doing it. But this kind of makes sense to me. Okay, so if the name matches or the custom name matches, we don't want to include it, so we want to filter it out. So yeah, the name doesn't match and the custom name doesn't match. What if I say name doesn't match and custom name doesn't match? Would you kill me? Would this be a bad idea? Custom name doesn't match. Okay. If name doesn't match, and custom name doesn't match. Yeah, okay. So now we have the filtered list, which removes all of the instances of name and custom name from this array of turned on switch names. And then we replace the old values with the new one. Old attributes, okay, so let's just do boom boom. What is going on here? There's something wrong with my syntax highlighting, but I think maybe it's pointing out something that's wrong with my code. Let's see. I never use a linter, but I will in this case. What is wrong with this? Reserve, ouch. I'm, I'm using a reserved word. Okay, that's a good thing to know. Unexpected trailing space in my comment, really? Expected open parentheses and saw period? Why is unexpected trailing space the thing? Okay. This one concerns me, but I'm not sure what's wrong with it. Expected. Set attribute. I think it's fine. Reserve name switch is a problem. Blah. Okay. So we'll fix that. Okay. So remove the attribute entirely if there are no active switches. Okay. So like I said, this is probably an if-else. So if switch names length is greater than 0, else let's remove that attribute entirely, and I'm pretty sure that's just remove attribute. Attribute. Okay. 1 second, I will be right back. Okay, I actually gotta go, but we'll just do this one last part. Switch lm remove attribute and that. Okay, so that's the turnoff function. That's all we're going to do for now. Next time we will do more of this. We'll export these functions. We'll make a when function that gives us some control over the events and responding to events, and then we're going to review the code and set up some tests and test out this library. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.